As a young citizen of India, armed with technology, knowledge, and love for my nation, with a vision of transforming India into a developed nation, I'm joining Shobhit University. What about you?
Very good morning from Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, deemed to be university. Its Center for Agricultural Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies, CAIRS, and Center for Agribusiness and Disaster Management Studies, CADMS, extend greetings to all the participants from India and abroad who are attending today's national webinar to Atmanirbhar Bharat in agriculture. This webinar series is being hosted on every Thursday at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Today is 18th March 2021. This webinar is on the topic Agro-Biodiversity, Intellectual Property Laws, and Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, and insight into the issues for India's agrarian economy. Let me repeat: Agro-Biodiversity, Intellectual Property Laws, Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, and insight into the issues for Indian agrarian economy. This topic is the need of the hour in India. On behalf of the Honorable Chancellor, Shri Kunwar Shekhar Vijendra, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Amar Garg, the faculty members of the university, and on my behalf, and as Professor Emeritus and Chairman of the Centers of Excellence, Center for Agricultural Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies, and Center for Agribusiness and Disaster Management Studies, and Center for Informatic Development Solutions and Applications, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Applications of the university, welcome our today's guest speaker, Dr. Shashank, Mauria, ARS retired, former Assistant Director General, Intellectual Property and Technology Management and International Relations, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, Government of India, New Delhi. So far, under this webinar series, the university has organized 24 webinars on the topics, namely, role of agricultural cooperative societies and e-governance, blockchain technology-based fishery value chain, a self-contained village, a felt need of the day, spices informatics network value chain, lantana camera, a camouflaged treasure trove, smart hill agriculture, Mera mobile, Mera marketing, integrated mariculture, aquaponics, and precision agriculture. In short, MAPA biofarms for income revolution, smart tribal agriculture for optimizing value chains, digital agri-tech and industry perspective, land resources information system in India, present and road ahead, weather decision technologies for increasing farm income, big data in smart farming, sustainable soil and land management for climate smart agriculture, understanding market dynamics for increasing farm income, role of technologies in mitigating crop risk, how to generate additional profit via simple, attractive approaches in farm produce, adoption of flexi check dam technology, adoption of flexi rubber dam check adoption of flexi rubber check dam technology, potential benefit for farmers in rainfed and coastal agro ecosystems, realizing the economic benefits of agroforestry, Octosol, organic humic solutions for increasing crop yields and quality while increasing farm income and improving soil health, closing the nutrient loop, phosphorus management in protein farming, artificial intelligence enabled pest management technology for agriculture crop protection without for crop protection without pesticides, empowering farmers through extension knowledge dissemination, role of mass media, poultry monitoring, smart poultry monitoring solution. And today is the 25th edition of this national webinar series. Is a very important day. This is something like a silver jubilee webinar today, which will be addressed by an eminent agricultural scientist, Dr. Shashank Mauria, former Assistant Director General, on the topic Agro-Biodiversity, intellectual property laws, agriculture and farmers' welfare, and insight into the issues for India's agrarian economy. You can see the keywords: agro-biodiversity, intellectual property laws, agriculture and farmer welfare, and insight, issues, and India's agrarian economy. Agriculture sector is the foundation of Indian economy. It employs more than 50% of the India's workforce and contributes almost 17 to 18% of its GDP. At present, agricultural livelihoods are being severely impacted worldwide as a result of anthropogenic global warming and climate change. India's labor-intensive and subsistence-based agriculture sector is particularly vulnerable to this development. Climate change has both direct and indirect effects on agricultural productivity, including changing rainfall patterns, severe drought, flooding, and changes in the geographical redistribution of pests and diseases. Indian farming community comprises of about 14 crore farmers, of which 85% farmers have small and marginal size operational holding. Farmer needs specific, timely, location specific, and personalized information for effective control on their production, risk, and then market their produce to identified market opportunities. Many national level programs, Digital India, Make in India, Skill India, Startup India, Stand Up India, have faced operational difficulties for its impact at farm level and farmer level, and that too at small and marginal farmers. Reforms towards digitalization of agricultural reforms. We have the report since 2018 submitted by the National Task Force on doubling farmers' income by 2022. Government of India, through its National Informatics Center, has prepared IT blueprint for agricultural sector through a national conference on informatics for sustainable agriculture development, ISDA, in May 1995. And in 2005, National E-Governance Program in Agriculture, NEGPA, was announced. Volume 3, Volume 4, Volume 11, and Volume 12B of the Doubling Farmers' Income by 2022 report 2018 of Government of India have suggested reforms measures for income rise through digitalization of farming sector. Volume 3, post-production agri-logistic for maximizing gains for farmer. Volume 4, post-production intervention, agriculture marketing. Volume 11, empowering the farmers through extension and knowledge dissemination. Volume 12b, digital technology in agriculture, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 10. With these 4 chapters and also volume 11, I was associated as the chairman of the subgroup for formulating the draft report. Agricultural logistic is the backbone of agribusiness, and agricultural marketing is the brain behind value realization. The volume 12b, digital technology in agriculture, have suggested 7 mission mode projects for operationalization to have an effective digitalization of Indian agriculture system. 1, digitalized agriculture, digital technology and innovation in agriculture, synergization of Digital India, Make in India, Skill India, and Startup India programs for transformational reforms in agriculture sector through smart irrigated farming, smart rainfed farming, and smart tribal farming. Digitalized agromet advisories and agricultural risk management solutions, digitalized agriculture resources information system, and micro level planning for achieving smart village and smart farming. Digitalized value chain for about 400 agriculture commodities. Digitalized access to inputs, technology, knowledge, skill, agricultural finance, credit, marketing, and agribusiness management to farmers. Digitalized integrated land and water management system for per drop more crop. And last one is very important. That is digitalized integrated farm health management. Integrated farm health management means farmer health, plant health, animal health, water health, soil health, and fish health for reduction of farmers' losses. There are 3 farm acts which were enacted during 2020. These are all game changer. Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce, Promotion and Facilitation Act, Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Service Act, and Essential Commodities Act. Farm Acts, Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce, Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020, and Farmers Empowerment and Protection Amendment Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act and Essential Commodities Act have facilitated more than 85% of the farming community, which can have the benefit of through strategic use of digital technology in farming sector, as suggested in the Doubling Farmers Income by 2022 report. Input systems, production systems, and output systems, and in research systems. These acts are aimed to liberalize trade, increase the number of buyers, and facilitate farmers fix their own price for their producers. However, deregulation alone may not be sufficient to attract more buyers, and success would depend upon well-developed rural markets, adequate storage facility, etc., etc. Atmanirbhar Bharat, the road ahead, is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, of making India a self-reliant nation, rested on 5 I's: intent, inclusion, investment, and infrastructure and innovation, and based on 5 pillars: economy, infrastructure, one that represents modern India, system, 21st century technology driven, vibrant demography, and demand, whereby the strength of our demand and supply chain should be utilized to full capacity. This was announced on 15th May 2020 by the central government. Another clarion call by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, is vocal for local to make it global. Make in India, Make for India, and Make for the globe. These reforms announced have been systematic, planned, integrated, interconnected, and futuristic for creating strong enterprises, generating employment, and robust supply chain. This is our intent. Next is Atmanirbhar Bharat in agriculture. This was announced during the third tranche of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Agriculture sector was given about 1.5 lakh crore booster. Now, let us have some inputs on the present day topic, so as to make the participants to have a better understanding of the today's webinar topic. Intellectual property laws. Intellectual property has increasingly assumed a vital role with a rapid pace of technological, scientific, and medical innovations that we are witnessing today. Moreover, the changes in the global economic environment have influenced the development of business models where intellectual property is a central element establishing value and potential growth. In India, several new legislation for the protection of intellectual property rights have been passed to meet the international obligations under the WTO agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, or TRIPS. There are 4 types of intellectual properties: copyrights, patents, trademarks, and trade secrets. We have the following acts operational in India: Copyright Amendment Act 2012, Patent Act 1970 as amended, the Designs Act 2000, the Trademark Act 1999, and the Geographical Indication of Goods Registration Protection Act 1999. Innovation, patenting, and commercialization for better jobs, startups, and success. The ideas economy. Technological advances are making it easier and faster to translate ideas into commercial products. For example, new software tools and programming languages are making it possible to develop software systems in a matter of days instead of months. Physical goods can also be readily facilitated and manufactured. In fact, 3D printers will soon bring manufacturing directly into our homes and offices. Growth in the computer industry is moving away from the services economy to the ideas economy. However, Indian professionals and students are unprepared for this shift from the services economy to the ideas economy. They lack the training and expert guidance in new idea generation, idea preparation through patenting, and other mechanism and commercialization. Even the best ideas without proper protection is worthless. Startup India challenges galore on funding, patent, and IPR fronts. Startup India challenges with respect to funding, with respect to patent, and with respect to IPR fronts. According to an article in Business Line dated 19th January 2016, first generation entrepreneurs across the country are applauding the government's efforts to recognize their business ventures under the banner of Startup India. But for most Indians, significant challenges remain in securing funding, patenting, and creation of intellectual property and commercialization. Patent protection and intellectual property rights are the major concerns for India's startup. Government of India has launched a scheme for startups intellectual property protection, SIPP, facilitating protection of patents, trademarks, and the design of innovative and interested startups on 18th January 2016. And that time, the Soviet Institute of Engineering Technology, in association with its partner, Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee, is from MIT, USA, and he is now an independent, intellectual property right practitioner in US, like Dr. Mauria. And it is, we are not able to, proceed with that, due to various other reasons. In the month of February 2021, there was a draft patent amendment rule 2021 was notified by Government of India, and they asked for a lot of suggestions from the Soviet Institute of Engineering and Technology. We have submitted our suggestions as given below. In the Rule 2 of the Patents Rules 2003, herein referred to as the principal rules, and so on and so forth, the main thing which they have brought out in the draft rule was eligible educational institution means an institution established by a central, provincial, and state act which is owned and controlled by the government and is wholly or substantially financed by the government. This goes against the spirit of intellectual property rights movement, Create India and Creative India. So from the university, we have requested, we have suggested that this clause has to be modified as eligible educational institution means an institution including higher educational institution, either private or public government, established by a central, provincial or state act. Full stop. Why the government? And it is a creative India that is more important. So universities, private and public research institutions are the factories of knowledge economy. We have to understand the Indian, administrative system should understand that universities, private or public, and public research institutions are the factories of knowledge economy and are among the direct contributors towards innovation and research, and particularly in emerging economies. National Education Policy 2020 have realized the importance of research in the country's economic growth and also advocated that all higher educational institutions, public and private, shall be treated on par within this regulatory regime. The higher education, the education policy says that higher education institution, whether it is private or public, has to be treated on par. But another government department where it is controlling and the custodian of a intellectual property right, they come out with a different understanding. There has to be synergization in thinking process in government. They cannot work on silos. Higher education institutions are the powerhouse of intellectual capital. The key stakeholders of higher educational institution are professors, scientists, and students. Biasness in any form between private and public higher educational institution is to be removed in order to promote research and development in higher educational institution. We also quoted all the relevant clauses as available in National Education Policy, which we have attached while we sent our recommendation to the Department of to the government for necessary action. IPR Policy 2016 says Creative India and Innovative India. and recognize that IPRs are significant drivers of the socio-economic, cultural, and industrial development of the country. The vision statement of the policy includes an India where intellectual property promotes advancement in science and technology. So, in view of the compelling reasons stated as above, the suggested modification may be effective to facilitate private higher education institutions getting all the benefits as proposed to be made available to institutions owned and controlled by the government and is wholly or substantially financed by the government. Hope that the government listens to our suggestion even through these international webinar series. Now let us come that it is our the policy 2016 recognize IPRs are significant drivers of socio-economic, cultural, and industrial development of the country. This is where the today's topic, agro-biodiversity, is more important. Agricultural biodiversity or agro-biodiversity, also known as agro-biodiversity, or the genetic resources for food and agriculture, includes both harvested and non-harvested species. As per the report available in the website of Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, it says that experience and research have shown and that agro-biodiversity can increase by productivity, food security, and economic returns, reduce the pressure of agriculture on fragile areas, forests, and endangered species, make farming systems more stable, robust, and sustainable, contribute to sound pest and disease management, conserve soil and increase natural soil fertility and health, contribute to sustainable intensification, diversify products and income opportunities, reduce or spread risk to individuals and nations, help maximize effective use of resources and the environment, reduce dependency on external inputs, improve human nutrition, and provide sources of medicine and vitamins, and conserve ecosystem structure and stability of species diversity. This is adopted from the paper by Prof. LA 1998, The Central Role of Agricultural Biodiversity, Trends and Challenges. Agro-biodiversity is central to sustainable food systems and sustainable diets. Use of agricultural biodiversity can contribute to food security, nutrition security, and livelihood security, and is also critical for climate adaptation and climate mitigation. The levels of agro-biodiversity are genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Agro-biodiversity in India, across the world, 37 sites are designated as globally important agriculture heritage systems, of which 3 are Indian: Kashmir saffron, Koraput traditional agriculture, and Kuttanadu in Kerala below sea level farming. In India, over 811 cultivated plants and 902 of their wild relatives have been documented. India's promising genetic resources include rice from Tamil Nadu, Ponamani, Assam, Agniboda, and Kerala, Pukali, Balia wheat and mushroom, Puchi from Himachal Pradesh, and rich farm animal native breeds, cattle 42, buffaloes 15, goat 34, sheep 43, and chicken 9. India is a center of origin of rice, brinjal, citrus, banana, and cucumber species. So the relevant acts with respect to biodiversity are the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Acts 2001 and the Biological Diversity Act 2002. There is a need for a comprehensive policy on ecological agriculture to enhance native pest and pollinator population, providing ecosystem services for the agricultural landscape. Agro-biodiversity relating to diversity of crops and varieties is crucial, as I stated earlier, in food security, nutrition, health and essential in agricultural landscape. Out of 250,000 globally identified plant species, about 7,000 have historically been used in human diets. Today, only 30 crops form the basis of world's agriculture, and just 3 species of maize, rice, and wheat supply more than half the world's daily calories. India is rich in agrobiodiversity, and the conservation of plant and animal genetic resources plays a crucial role in providing food, nutritional, and livelihood security for human well-being. Agrobiodiversity can help improve the country's poor ranking in global hunger index. India is ranked 102 in the global hunger index out of 117 qualified countries. Let us now turn to the address by Dr. Shashank Mauria, former Assistant Director General, ICAR, on the topic Agro-Biodiversity, Intellectual Property Laws, Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, and insight into the issues of agrarian economy. According to the synopsis of the guest speaker, he has written, he claims it is a synthesis on IPR and the related issues for Indian agriculture. This is very important for the rural youths who wanted to get involved in agriculture and rural development, and also for the 85% of the farming community who are small and marginal farmers. Today's topic will encourage, will motivate, and galvanize the participants. Watching over telecast through facebook.com/Shobhit University India or youtube.com/Shobhit University in for establishing agri-tech startups. More than 6,500 agri-tech startups, at least one per development block in India, or even about 2.25 lakhs agri startups, one per each Gram Panchayat. In view of the fact that Government of India is encouraging new age startups and entrepreneurs who require handholding, including on IPR issues. Let me invite Dr. Shashank Mauria, our guest speaker, to address the participants. Before that, let me introduce our guest speaker. Dr. Shashank Mauria is the former Assistant Director General, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, Minister of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, Government of India, and independent IP practitioner, member, Bar Council of India. He belonged to Agriculture Research Service of Indian Council of Agriculture Research. His interests are IP issues in agriculture and biodiversity, plant variety rights, and patents in life sciences, seed research and development, genetic modification and regulatory issues, collaboration and commercialization in public sector R&D, conservation and utilization of biological resources, and agriculture policies and extension. During 1978 and 1986, he was the economic botany scientist with Central Arid Zone Research Institute, Jodhpur. Worked on vegetation ecology issues for management and rehabilitation of grazing lands in villages of Western Rajasthan. During 86-88, he was a senior scientist at National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources, New Delhi, thereby streamlining exploration, evaluation, and conservation of forage crop genetic resources. In 1988, he was moved to Crop Sciences Division of ICAR headquarters at Krishi Bhavan, New Delhi. As the principal scientist in the division until 2005, he worked on new research project formulation and reforms in research management. In 2005, we coordinated for the publication of ICR's very important and more, respected the Handbook of Agriculture. He was involved in the publication of ICR's revised Handbook of Agriculture. And ICAR headquarters, he has worked with the Minister of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare on seed-related regulatory issues. He was associated with the arrival of Indian laws, Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act and Biological Diversity Act, and their implementation in the initial years. He did a pioneering research work on crop variety characterization for the IPR region, which was followed by all plant breeders in ICAR and Agricultural University. In 2005, he became Assistant Director General, Intellectual Property and Technology Management to head these divisions for ICAR. In 2017, he took over as Assistant Director General, International Relations, and he also held additional charge as Assistant Director General for Policy and Perspective Planning and Seeds. In 2011, he was instrumental in floating a public limited for profit company for ICAR and Department of Agricultural Research and Education, namely Agri-Innovate India Limited, and he was one of the founding directors. He did his BSc Honors, MSc in Botany, LLB from Delhi University, and MSc in Conservation and Utilization of Plant Genetic Resources from University of Birmingham, United Kingdom, and PhD in Plant Genetics from Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi. He has also done courses on intellectual property laws, patents, trademarks, copyrights from University of Pennsylvania, USA. Earlier, he has taught plant sciences in Delhi University College. He has superannuated from ICAR on September 30, 2018, post-retirement. He pursues his interest in agriculture policies and extension. Dr. Mauria is now an independent IP practitioner, a practicing advocate, and being a member of Bar Council of Delhi. Dr. Mauria, we welcome you to the National Webinar Series on Doubling Farmers' Income by 2022, Atmanirbhar Bharat in Agriculture. We request you to address on the topic Agro-Biodiversity, Intellectual Property Rights, Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, and insight into the issues for Indian agrarian economy. Over to you, Dr. Shashank Mauria. Over to you. Please unmute.
Okay. I have to unmute from where? Others have to unmute, not me. So, thank you for that very comprehensive introduction. At the outset, I thank you and the Shobhit University and the Honorable Chancellor, Kunwar Shekhar Vijendra for giving me this opportunity to share my association with Indian Council of Agriculture Research as its Agriculture Research Services Scientist for 40 plus years. As evident from the topic, I wish to cover the whole range of issues which have become so very relevant in the present times. And the central focus, the underlying message in the whole topic is intellectual property rights. And I see it as one big dimension for reforms in research and education. The fact remains, as very rightly indicated by Professor Moni also, that intellectual property laws and their understanding and the assimilation of intellectual property dimensions in research system has become absolutely necessary, not only in research, even in education. We have private universities, we have public universities, we have Government of India scientific institutions, and so on. The question is, how do we internalize this externality of intellectual property rights issues in the whole education system so that it gets reflected as assimilated in the research systems and then in technology extension, commercialization, utilization, realization, on realization, a ground reality. And here I also see the opportunity for appreciating the intellectual property rights issues even right up to the villages. And I will touch upon that aspect as well. Basically, in this topic, while the underlying focus is on IPR and related issues in the context of agriculture, I have decided to cover it through 7 broad headings, which is my plan of presentation. To begin with, I will explain some of the terminologies. Professor Moni hinted about agro-biodiversity, genetic resources, and so on. And then I move on to how this issue of intellectual property rights became so important in the second half of the 20th century and what has happened since 1960s, I would say, up till 2020 and now onwards. The listeners already know from the introduction by Professor Moni that the importance of intellectual property issues have been highlighted even by our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji. The initiatives from the concerned department in Ministry of Commerce and Industry, that is DPIIT, on various issues for promoting the IPR dimensions is another dimensions. Then it comes to the scientific organizations, whether it is Indian Council of Agricultural Research or Council of Scientific and Industrial Research or Defense Research Development Organization and so on. Each organization has built its own mechanism for pursuing the IPR related issues for the required extension of their technologies and services. A general imagination may be that probably intellectual property rights are for too much of commercialization and like profiting. No. Particularly in the kind of situation we have, the challenge is to consider intellectual property rights as a window to showcase the strengths of each organization, whether it's technologies, whether it's services or materials. And then we also classify these strengths on the basis of requirements of the nation, and certainly it's not necessary to be going into through the way of commercialization only. We have heard a lot about open access from a public institution like Indian Council of Agricultural Research, CSIR and DRDO. Well, we have tried to merge intellectual property rights under the background theme of open access so that technologies, services, materials can be extended to the user agencies to make them a ground reality. When I'm talking about agriculture, obviously my focus is on 2 laws which were indicated by Professor Moni: Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights and the Biological Diversity Act. Of course, I'll be touching upon other laws also. And when we don't have understanding about the value and worth of our biological resources, and we don't implement the required understanding in our systems, issues of biopiracy are there. And why does biopiracy happen? Because biopiracy happens for those biological resources which are already known to be associated with some traditional knowledge from our forefathers. So, understanding of traditional knowledge. Patent Act has been particularly mentioned by our Honorable Prime Minister Ji. He said once patent, profit and prosper and publish things. Genetic modification of crops, we all know BT cotton has been a good success in this country. There are others which are being in the pipeline. And then I'm sure many of us also know about the litigation cases, patent litigation cases in particular, about the Basmati patent, the Haldi patent, the Neem patent, and so on. My association with these cases makes me share with you how, what were the issues that we faced while handling these litigation cases, and what are the lessons emerging from these litigation cases for research and education. One may say that intellectual property rights education is important for research institutes, but no, I would say, and rightly written, mentioned in the intellectual property rights policy mentioned by Professor Moni, India's IPR policy. In education, from school, in schools itself, we are now, from because of the directions from the policy, we are progressively adding new and dimension, expanding the knowledge of intellectual property rights as we go forward in higher classes. Professor Moni, you mentioned about education policy. There also the emphasis for research has started in the policy from undergraduate days. Intellectual property issues are also important in villages. I will share with you a slide which I made for school students to make them interesting. And finally, I will sum up the whole. I plan to cover it in about 50 minutes, and I start with the terminologies. I've taken these terminologies from the best source I considered to project to the listeners. International Treaty on Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, has defined biological diversity. It is the variability among living organisms. And that variability of living organisms covers everything: terrestrial, marine, other aquatic systems, and ecological complexes to which they form a part. And that diversity is within the species, between the species, and of ecosystems. Our Biological Diversity Act, India's BD Act, has also got a similar definition. The best definition from Agro-Biodiversity, Professor Moni also referred, is from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And let me not go into much of it. We both harvested and non-harvested aspects are covered in this. Two very fancy terms have come in the recent 5-10 years: bioeconomy and bioproperty. I request the listeners to read it. This is from a source given at the bottom. It's a story, probably apocryphal, which means maybe having a doubtful authenticity. But understand what is the message in it, and I'm giving the source. See, the Portuguese had anchored off the Malabar coast, and they were received by us. We have the whole country. India has been a colony earlier, and what did the indigenous people in the Malabar coast? They got perturbed because they saw the Portuguese removing the pepper wines, and they went rushing to the king Zamarin and saying that people are operating our pepper wines and we may lose our trade. And our understanding at that time was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is our family, and our approach was, oh, don't worry that too much. They may take the wines, but how can they take our monsoons? The fact remains, today weathers can be created. The time has come for vertical farming. So whole issue of understanding our biological diversity, to to giving, um, um, taking us to bioeconomy, considering it as a bioproperty. It's all necessary, and understanding the biological resources and diversity is so very important. Just to tell what are intellectual property rights. Yes, they are private rights, and we protect them under different theories of law. Patent, copyright, trademark, trade secret, plant variety rights, geographical indications, etc. And the purpose is obviously to promote the progress of science and useful arts, which is so necessary. Under the rights, you give the right holder the right for limited times. Who are the right holders? The inventors and the authors, to their respective creations, so that they use it in a way for the benefit of the society. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property is, as Professor Moni was talking about ideas, it is only the expression of an original idea. And the idea of giving this nomenclature intellectual property is to say that it is an asset and it may be used to generate revenue. As I was saying, as a public sector organization, we may be classifying our goods and services. We may like to generate revenue. We may like to take it as a public good and give it freely, because at the end of the day, when startups and agriculture productivity and growth happens, there is a generation of income for the Indian farmers, for the startup entrepreneurs, and so on. So intellectual property rights refers to the right of any party to safeguard and legally prevent others from using the original brand trade secret. Yes. In giving the IPR, the idea is that you will use it more efficiently and effectively, and so you are given a limited time. You promote your technologies and services so that it goes to the user and benefits societies. In the context of agriculture, as I have also covered the topics in my title, Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, Agrarian Economy, I just chose to talk this description from Wikipedia about the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare of Government of India. Agriculture is our principal source of livelihood for more than half the population. We are a largely agrarian economy, with 52.1% of the population estimated to be directly or indirectly employed in agriculture. That is the importance. And the ministry is meant for administration of the rules and regulations and laws related to agriculture. I quoted from the last part from Economic Survey, and when I talk about laws, rules, and regulations, obviously it is not the agriculture laws alone. I mean, it's not the intellectual property laws alone. The agriculture legislation, the Seed Act, the Fertilizer Act, the three acts Professor Moni referred, the recent ones, on which so much of debate has been there, which is why the issue of farmers' welfare. What is an agrarian economy? We are a predominantly agriculture country, so obviously it is a rural rather than urban based. Agrarian economy is centered upon the production, consumption, trade, and sale of agriculture commodities, including plants and livestock. I was happy Professor Moni elaborated so well. In the Indian Constitution, a provision is there for fundamental right to life and liberty. And our Supreme Court has elaborated this right to life so well in different litigation cases. Fundamental right to life covers right to education, right to clean environment, right to clean water, and so on. So, on one hand are the human rights. On the other hand are the intellectual property rights. Among the human rights, we also have the farmers' rights. Farmers' right to life. Farmers' rights to their own varieties, their own creation of improved varieties, of improved breeds, and so on. Under the Biological Diversity Act, which is a follow-up of the Convention on Biological Diversity, that international treaty. The nations are provided with sovereign rights on biological resources present in their geographic boundaries, and I'll touch upon that also. Let me talk about the recent history of intellectual property rights and how things have become, IPR and related issues have become so important. First, the value and worth of biological diversity. What I want to highlight from this is we need to understand the value and worth of biological resources. Our biological diversity in Western Ghats, in tropical rainforest, in Eastern India, Western Himalayas, Northeast, and so on. And Professor Moni mentioned about cultivated plants and wild flora and fauna and all those things. Just see the value and worth. I'm quoting some renowned scientists. The economic value of ecosystem services for the entire biosphere is in the range of $16 to $54 trillion per year, with an average of $33 trillion per year, compared to the annual gross national product of US of $18 trillion. See, compared to GNP, the scope in ecosystem and biodiversity services is much more. Annual markets for products derived only from the plant genetic resources runs into billions of dollars. And India has enough biological diversity on a limited land area, housing a limited population. And when are the biological resources appropriated? When they are associated with traditional knowledge. Today's time, food security, health, benefit sharing, conservation, access, use, everything and IPR have become important. I'll touch upon those things now. What really happened in the second half of 20th century? See, there's an interesting book, one by Public Laws, Private Property, by one Professor Susan Sell from Washington. She says the word in the 1960s, what happened? The private sector in the developed world began lobbying for intellectual property rights in the developing countries. Basically, the idea was that they wanted to cover more and more markets amidst the likelihood of their markets getting saturated for their expansion. As we moved into the 1970s, everybody was concerned and desired the legal control over their own genetic resources. 1980s, I call it the decade of UN organizations. On the one extreme were United Nations Environment Program, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, and Worldwide Fund for Nature. Worldwide Fund for Nature. They were talking about the environmental perspective. On the other extreme was UNCTAD, UN Conference on Trade and Development, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. The Uruguay round, they were talking about agriculture economic value of genetic resources. The Food and Agriculture Organization and the Consultative Group for International Agriculture Research, they chose the middle path of agriculture perspective. In 1990s, I call it the decade of international treaties. The International Convention on Biological Diversity came, the World Trade Agreement came, of which trade-related intellectual properties rights is one section. As WTO and CBD became internationally legally binding treaties in 92 and 95 respectively, there was a feeling that we must understand our biological diversity and channelize it properly. So the concept came of biological diversity prospecting. But again, if we don't understand, as I said before, if we won't understand the value and worth of biological diversity, others will assign it a financial value depending on their understanding, their whims and fancies. So we need to develop our own understanding of biological resources and their usages and the prospects that we want from our biological resources. There was an element in biodiversity prospecting that is, who understands more can exploit our biodiversity. As a reaction came the farmers' rights. Farmer rights concept is basically limited to, for the time being, two farmers' varieties. But as I said, You can take it the whole fundamental right to life and everything. 2000 onwards, the developing countries started uniting. We have heard about the Doha Development Round. India came with its own laws because the flexibility was there. We came with our sui generis system, protection of plant varieties and farmers' rights, and the Biological Diversity Act. More new issues came, labor issues, environment issues. Now, what was happening was, well, the goal was not in intellectual property rights to keep your technologies and services close to your chest and don't share it. Yet, the message was going like that. So, internationally, we came out with a legally binding treaty, international treaty on plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. And the message was, at least for food and agriculture, we should collaborate and harness the synergy. We are all dependent on interdependent on biological resources. Then came the Nagoya Protocol, not to limit it, the collaboration and harnessing of synergies only to food and agriculture, but also to other biological resources. Then the GM crops patenting, and when you are patenting them, then there comes question that yes, all the profits must not go to some big entity. So the question of fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms of licensing. Basically, in the second half of the 19th century, 20th century, WTO, TRIPS, and Convention on Biological Diversity have been the two salient developments. And these international treaties have thrown up challenges of growth and development. And these challenges, along with additional international commitments by the member nations. So, the member nations of these international treaties have to think about conservation of environment and biodiversity, evaluation and monitoring of the biodiversity and environment. We have to honor claims of intellectual property. We have to conform to the requirements of stringent quality standards, the new requirements of international trade, the facilitated access to genetic resources, and we have to collaborate to harness energies on mutually agreed conditions and benefit sharing arrangements and so on. Clearly, we need a paradigm shift in individual countries' overall approach to growth and development, which is why I chose this topic. Coming to agriculture, this is one of my favorite slides. As I said, on the one hand, please see the right top now. On the one hand, are the people passionate about the environmental perspective of natural resources. They want conservation and ecology to be more important. On the other extreme, on the left bottom, there are people who have strong feelings towards much faster realization of the agroeconomic value of natural resources. I said, we need to understand the value. So they want to realize fast the economic value in our resources. I call them their fascination for commerce and economics, the other group, their fascination for conservation and ecology. So it's a kind of tug of war between the two. And here comes the role of humanities as science. Because the whole issue of science and realization of science by each and every citizen of a nation has to come through the understanding of humanities. The agriculture comes in the middle between those two extremes. Yeah, before that, who are the people who are passionate about conservation and ecology, and who are the people who are passionate about commerce and economics? About conservation ecologies, people are those in our developing countries, the NGOs, and the sympathetic academics. You can say the public sector academics, ICAR, DRDO, in other developed countries from the public sector. And what is the goal of these academicians and developing countries and NGOs? That intellectual property's right should be allowed and access to all users. But the problem is, these group of people are smaller, weaker, with fewer resources. People who are passionate about commerce and economics, they are the industry associations, multinational enterprises, OECD countries. Their goal is ration intellectual property rights. They are larger, stronger, with more resources. And agriculture falls in the middle. And for agriculture, I say two most critical issues. And these are, you see, written in the blue box in the middle. And these two critical issues are imparting ecological integrity for sustainability. Agroecology was mentioned by Professor Moni. We need to reduce the costs for farmers. We need to enhance their income, and even mitigating risk like climate change was mentioned by Professor Moni. So today, the risks have also multiplied manifold. Second generation problems, agriculture is coming, so there are ecological issues, financial risks, social risks. People are just leaving agriculture, and the legal dimensions also. We're talking about IPR laws, contract law, and so on. So the whole issue in a sector like agriculture, considering the agriculture situation, has to be dealt with a human touch. And the kind of protests we are seeing these days for the three laws, we need farmers' welfare with fairness and efficiency, which the government has tried to do. All in all, we want a conducive agriculture policies environment with appropriate statutory provisions for farmers' welfare in best national interests. We want an effective and efficient mechanism for agriculture extension and services. We need to ensure timely availability to farmers the best agriculture technologies, materials, services, and infrastructure support. The question of minimum price guarantee has also come. We're talking about 23 crops. Would it not be a good thing if the farmers also giving a premium if their quality levels of the produce are better? Ideals are not easily achieved, but we should be aiming for the ideals. I would wish that yes, if a person is born in India, there should be a minimum income guarantee for each and every person born in India. And at the end of the day, the quality of amenities and life, the quality of life and amenities both. I would wish, as I said, I believe in attaining the ideals. Both quality of amenities and life in rural areas, to the extent possible, should be same in urban areas. Same as in urban areas. A lot of debate has been there. The laws are facing so much of resistance. The technologies from the public sectors are sometimes not reaching to the remotest farmers in this nation. So we have been debating from Krishi Bhavan whether there's a deficit in the policy, or there's a deficit in the technology, or there is deficit in the both. Professor Moni, you were referring about the synchrony and synergized activities of different departments. That's a very important issue. I begin coming from the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. I just want to highlight here that Indian Council of Agriculture Research, or CSIR or DRDO and like that for that matter, have a limited role. They are meant for research. For ICAR, the link department is Department of Agriculture Research and Education. So, research education. And we in ICAR are limited to extension education. There is a difference between extension and extension education. Extension education is on a sample of the whole extension that is required in the villages, in every panchayat, with every villager. So to the extent possible, the Indian Council of Agriculture Research has been doing extension and extension education, but consider the debate and discussions, they've become so important. They're heard so much in the last, since June 2021. There are a whole lot of issues: investment, credit, infrastructure, land, trade, tariff, prices, market subsidies, diversification, resource utilization, institutions, education, skills. So we need reforms. I have been associated with reforms in the research institutions. I will be gradually taking you to that dimension for assimilating the best possible reforms in public sector with its public objective. Well, these are the laws of intellectual property, 7 laws. Obviously, talking about agriculture, I will not talk much about Semiconductor and Designs Act and Copyright Act and Trademarks Act because they are based. But let me touch more on the other laws. I come to the important laws that I consider: Plant Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights and Biological Diversity Act. I was lucky to be associated with its first draft way back in October 1993. At that time, we studied plant variety laws from 26 countries, and we found ray of hope for our sui generis system because that flexibility was provided to us in TRIPS Article 27.3b. We got this flexibility for extend variety rights from the miscellaneous provisions of the earlier Plant Variety Protection Act of France. From the International Union of Protection for New Varieties of Plant and the UPOV 1991 Act, we got the hint for essential derived varieties. Through the ITPGRFA, we got the strength for putting in farmers' rights and researchers' rights were there in all the plant variety laws because the research has to continue unhindered. So these four are, I consider, as the salient features of this law. The acronym I called FREE. But the issue is, intellectual property rights on plant varieties are okay, but there should also be free availability of germplasm. Over the last 35 years or so, the meaning of the word free has changed. They say free may not mean free of charge. That's a different thing that from a public sector organization, we may give it at a very nominal price or even freely. That's a different issue. But the meaning of the word free has changed. Now, to really have a meaningful right on your varieties, you have to have proper description of the varieties so that you can give an identity to your variety with a fair degree of certainty, which we call the distinctness, uniformity, and stability requirements. If the variety is not being provided to the farmers who need them, there is a possibility for compulsory license also in the Patent Act. And basically, it's a question of benefit sharing with the users of the new and better varieties that are there. When free does not mean free of charge, and people start to corner their own creations, and as I was saying, rationing intellectual property, which we will not like to want. We need to convey the message about people to be appreciating the interdependence. The whole world is globally interdependent. Similarly, International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resource, Food and Agriculture highlights how we need to collaborate and harness energies on plant genetic resources. And as was said by Professor Moni, the whole issue is accelerating the synergies. Without forgetting the intellectual property rights and our role for the amelioration of agriculture, the betterment of agriculturists. Basically, the law balances the interests of breeders and farmers. See the achievements of this law. And the slide is for 2018. The situation is no different now. When we had put the clause for extend variety, we thought that we have already evolved and developed so many high-yielding varieties and other varieties. Why should those be not considered? And they should also be acknowledged that yes, we may give a lesser period of protection to them, but those should also be acknowledged. As I said, we took the hint from the French law, miscellaneous provisions. So there are a good number of extant varieties registered. The new varieties are also being registered. The essential derived varieties, there is a bit difficulty, which the authority has come out with improved methods and see the number of farmers varieties, the farmer variety applications that are coming. At the end of the day, the success of the law is reflected from the impact it creates. And what should be impact? This is a law about plant varieties, whether of the scientists or of the farmers. So the question of seed quality is very important. If you give quality seed, conferring to the variety identity, as I said, with fair degree of certainty, the confidence of farmers, the receivers or variety will also increase. If the farmers' confidence increases in our varieties of scientists say, the breeders' confidence also increase. They also get increase. If we give them to help take the help of industry, the industry's confidence also increases. They're also, with the collaboration within public and private, they also come out with new varieties. The issue now is, it is a sui generis system created by India, and we have already had some good impact in India in terms of quality of seed with fairly precise identity. But then we need to take this message of this kind of law to other developing and least developed countries to make the impact internationally. Well, the achievements in terms of figures do tell something, but yes, there are still issues, and those need to be deliberated. I will not go into this plant variety right. Maybe that is a cause of, so that is for Q&A or maybe later. But basically, this law is so important. Coming to the India's Biological Diversity Act, Section 3 to Section 7 and Section 40, I consider the salient ones. We have a sovereign right conferred on us through the Convention on Biological Diversity. So, Section 3 makes a distinction between Indian and non-Indian. So, if it's a non-Indian, you have to take prior approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. Section 4 talks about the results of research. When you transfer these results of research to certain persons, obviously non-Indians, you need to take the approval of National Biodiversity Authority. But see, our law has taken care of that. This problem of Section 3 and 4 should not be affecting the collaborative research projects to harness energies, which is so very required, very, very much required. Of course, because the goal of intellectual property rights can be to exclude others from producing, harvesting, and using. So, the application of intellectual property rights, for that, you need the prior approval of National Biodiversity Authority. There is system, three-tier system, and the middle tier is state biodiversity boards, and the permission is needed for taking biological resources, obtaining biological resources for certain purposes. For individuals, people like Veds and Hakims and so on, the freedom is provided. I will not go into the details of the law, but it's a wonderful law, appreciated so much in our international conventions. Also, when there are normally traded commodities, we also exempt them from such biological resources so that trade doesn't affect. We came out from the National Biodiversity Authority about the guidelines for access and benefit sharing. The number of ABS agreements are increasing. The people's biodiversity registers are being made. They have a Center for Biodiversity Policy and Law, so the important issue of policy research. Well, yes, as I hinted, there's a lot of difference when making a law and implementation law. Some of the difficulties I highlight there, and we need to academically work on these as well. What is the mechanism for workable benefit sharing policies? An aspect needing attention under the Plant Variety Act. And when we are giving farmers' rights to farmers' varieties, how do the farmers participate in commercial situations? The startups up to village level can help these things. The producers of farmer producer organization can help these things. And similarly, the question of expected performance of a variety under given conditions. That's a difficulty. The Biological Diversity Act proposal has meant for some amendments. Likewise, some amendments we need to deliberate and decide what kind of small amendments we need in the PPF Act as has been proposed by the Biological Diversity Act and authority. So lawmaking is okay, but research and law, research and policies have to continue so that we continue doing on-course corrections for addressing the difficulties. We say seed is more important. It's so vital and critical. We see seeds from the point of germination, from physical purity and genetic purity. What is genetic purity? The same identity, distinctness, uniformity, and stability. The value for cultivation and use, VCU. I mean, to what extent provides the claimed resistance or protection against disease and pests, the claimed production levels, and so on. So, about the understanding of identity of varieties, there is a lot of difference. 50 years back, there were very few varieties. Today, the numbers have gone so much. So, when the numbers have gone so much, the description requirements for precise identity has also become more difficult, more exacting. So, you need to understand your varieties on more number of characters and the expression of each characters and expression of characters in different environments. So there are view levels to consider the characters. Seed certification is there. Seed certification basically talks about the identity of variety and what really happens in seed certification. I mean, there are two types of errors in seed certification. I just want to highlight this, which is possible to be corrected through proper understanding of distinctness, uniformity, and stability testing. Two types of errors happen in seed certification. Type 1, varieties are same when in fact they are not. I repeat, varieties are same when in fact they are not. I mean, the sentence appears amusing, but imagine a rabi situation, winter's crop. A seed should go along with the package of production technology. The farmer doesn't know whether it is to be mid-October sowing or mid-November sowing, early sowing or late sowing or medium sowing. The seed has not gone with the package of production. So the farmer sows an early sowing variety or a late sown variety both together. At the end, sometime around December, near Christmas time, the cold stress comes and both start flowering. We had not gone for understanding the differences other than flowering and yield and things like that. So when the both flower, people will say, oh, both have varieties appear to be the same. But the fact is they appear to be the same because they were sown together at a time which was not recommended for that variety. So it is the environment, the cold stress in December, and that makes them safe. And it is the reason that we did not understand the description of the variety on the basis of characters which are not really or susceptible to environment or which are less susceptible to environment. If we understand on those kind of characters, I wish I can explain more on that. Likewise, in the kharif crops, winter, summer crops. If the land is not leveled, if water is accumulating at some place, the plants will be taller. At other place, where there is water stress, the plant may be shorter. Somebody will say varieties are different because one place is the short, one other place is the tall. But the fact is they are same. It is the micromanagement of the environment in the plant variety field that makes difference. So I highlight the need for precise description with fair degree of certainty. It has been my favorite topic, a PhD topic. I wish I could speak more and more. We need to understand the pedigree also, apart from understanding the properties of variety on characters which are not too much affected by environment. Likewise, when we are talking about value for cultivation and use, we need to understand about location-specific nature of the varieties. Patents are granted on new inventions. And patents are granted for an inventive step, novelty required. It has to have an industrial application. And some categories of patent subjects are non-patentable under Section 3 and 4. What is the treatment to biodiversity in Indian Patent Act? We need disclosure of the source of geographic origin of biological materials. And if you don't disclose or you disclose wrongly, there is a problem as per the second provision. And there could be additional grounds for opposition. Agriculture in the Indian Patent Act. Some of the issues, method of agriculture is not patentable. Plants and animals in whole or parts are not entered. Seeds, varieties, and species are not. Essential biological processes are not. So, considering the nature of Indian agriculture, we have taken due safeguards in not allowing proper patents and allowing people to exclude others from producing, multiplying, and so on. So, these are non-patentable subjects, which is another good thing of our law. Biopiracy. I said, the biological resources are pirated because they are already known to be associated with some traditional knowledge. And we have a sovereign right on our genetic resources and our biological resources. And if we don't understand and document the value and worth of our biological resources, then the biopiracy issues can be there. In Patents Act, even internationally, the source of origin of for the biological resource is required in many countries. Human error could also be there. The patent examiners may be having some oversight and they miss the thing. The tools for search tools for patents. I mean, if there's an oral knowledge only, it's not a written knowledge. Well, somebody may grant a patent like it happened in the Haldi case. So public disclosure of traditional knowledge is there. Disclosure in other countries. And under the Biological Diversity Act, the PIC, the prior informed consent is also required. And traditional knowledge is huge. Such rich civilization history of India. I was talking about traditional knowledge in Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. And see, traditional knowledge is not associated just with life science and natural sciences. Our traditional knowledge has been in the field of engineering sciences and social sciences also. So we need to really understand the issues in the long chain. Professor Moni talked about value chain. And the long chain encompasses from knowledge to innovations, to intellectual property rights, ultimately to benefits. Well, GM crops have received some controversy. Agriculture extension has become so difficult, complex now. On one hand, we talk about GM crops. On the other hand, we talk about integrated farming systems of natural farming, organic farming, and so on. So the question is, agriculture extension has also become difficult. How do you balance biodiversity and GM crops? How do you ensure the continued efficacy of GM traits? Because genetic modification traits are single or one or two genes based. The resistance can break. Then it's a question of deployment of new varieties. The question of this three farmers laws mentioned by Professor Moni. Whether it's an agriculture is a state subject or a federal subject or a concurrent subject, the requirement of no objection from states, pricing about it. So we are taking now for BT, we have to take in BT cotton, say, the no objection from different state governments for allowing cultivation of BT cotton. Likewise, for balancing biodiversity and GM crops, we also need to balance hybrids and inbred varieties. Not too much of hybrids, because the hybrids, in next production cycle, the seeds segregate, you don't get the same purity. Whereas the inbred varieties, the purity is maintained at the farmer's level for 3-4 years at least. So we need to balance them so that we take care of the interests of industry as well as farmer self-dependence. And at the end of the day, this has, as I said about collaborative research, we need to have a complementary and competitive relationship between private and public sector seed industry. The new seed bill has not been coming. What are the issues? Why it is getting delayed? The issues of the farmers, the issues of the industry, and so on. So like I said, we studied 26 laws of plant varieties from different countries and international laws. We need to really understand what are the provisions in seed laws of different countries and come out with a law. We need to start a debate, discussion, with all kinds of stuff, and the Ministry of Agriculture has been doing it. So the question is understanding the interests of different stakeholders and coming out with a new seed law so that it becomes in conformity with the Plant Variety Protection Act. Likewise, the issue of essentially, because GM crops again, the gene is introduced in some earlier well-adapted varieties. So understanding essentially derived variety much better. The gene patent, the seed patent are two different things. To what extent the intellectual property in the gene is to be acknowledged? And to what extent and when the seed is to be considered non-patentable? These are all issues. There are issues and cases in the litigation, and I'm sure new light will be coming. What are the overlaps and so on? Likewise for essential biological processes, cell lines, and microorganisms. In 2016, we came with the cotton seed price control, the essential through the help of Essential Commodities Act. We tried to regulate the trait value, seed value, and the maximum sale price for BT cotton. To assess the issue of continued efficacy, I said that you have to deploy new genes as on-course corrections. The Plant Variety Act, Section 9 to say it has a primacy over the Patent Act. Another issue in the Supreme Court today. So what happened? We came out with the guidelines, and those have to be withdrawn in 6 days. Again, the synchrony and synergy was lacking between different departments, which I highlight again and again. So we need to do a lot on education and cooperation between different departments, and I highlighted this slide. I wish I can talk more on this. Well, it has been an interesting journey for me understanding these different laws and the litigation cases. And each law and each litigation case that is mentioned on the left side in the table, they give one important message, and we need to remember. In brief, I started came out with 11 messages from these laws. From the Biodiversity Act, the message is we need a fair and equitable access and benefit sharing for our resources, services, and technologies. The message of Plant Variety Act and Patent Act is the traceability issue. The message of Competition Act is that enforcement is not easy. Enforcement also takes time. So we need to increase the momentum. I wish I can talk more on Competition Act also. The International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, and then enlarging the scope from only food and agriculture to Nagoya Protocol to cover all biological resources. The whole issue of classification of biological resources and business plan. Say, for example, plant genetic resources. Where do we use our plant genetic resources? We basically use our plant genetic resources for three broad purposes. One is for culinary uses. The other is for disease and pest, etc., curative uses. And the third is for drought, etc., the climate change uses. So how do you identify them? As per the ITP-GRFA, how do we price them or free them and whatever? That understanding is required. That business as usual approach cannot. The seed bill is not coming, as I said. So I say it again and again. We need policy and legal research. And that element of social science research in research institute organization like ICAR, DRDO, ICSR has to be there. Unfortunately, policy or legal research is lacking in scientific organization, and that dimension has to come. The transgenic cotton patent case. You know what happened? During 91 to 94, a transgenic cotton patent to an agrocetus company was granted in India as well as in the US. And we came out with a publication. We found a publication according to which the technology was not novel. We said genetic modification is a textbook process. So what is the novelty? Why should it be given? And believe me, the passion for safeguarding your intellectual property right is so much that 16 US lawyers descended onto Udyog Bhavan to discuss about this transgenic cotton patent. But because we had a reference, this patent was revoked in the US because of lack of novelty. That is, it was wrongly granted there. That also happens. As I said, human error is also there when I was talking about biopiracy. We revoked that under Section 66 of the Patent Act, and we felt at that time we need much more techno-legal skills in regulation. Likewise, in the other messages, I say we also need techno-legal skills in research. In the Basmati patent case, the case was already in the US courts, and we had to do research to develop more data, to develop better quality data, quantity research. See, the case is already in the court. So, the whole issue of quality and quantity of research data from our academic institution, how you maintain your experimental notebooks, how you digitize them so that they are available as a fallback action in case of difficulty. The neem patent, the question was about stabilizing principle. We need to understand where lies the gap in the technology. There are softwares available for patent landscaping. The white gaps are available. If you understand those gaps and you do research in those particular gaps, there is much more likelihood of getting a patent or your technology. The Haldi patent, we had to talk from our old scriptures. We had to dig out to defend this case. So the whole issue of traditional knowledge, documentation, and manage, making them in a Sanskrit people may not understand, making them in a patent-friendly language, like CSR did for traditional knowledge digital library, that is to be expanded in pharmaceutical medicinal plants, that is to be expanded in agriculture, and so on. The wheat variety, Nepal farmers variety from Uttarakhand was patented by a multinational company for certain biscuit making qualities. Another interesting case. And the pressure was that we should chase and challenge this patent in the US. And that tells us a lesson, we should have elements of proper planning, considering the patent as well as non-patent literature, and having a foresight and farsight both for our researchers. A sorghum variety case, we found techno-legal skills in our research system lacking. The same is in other scientific organization. Commercialization from public sector research system is not received so well. So we need more clarity on the issue. It's same approach in all the public sector scientific organization. Clarity about it is needed. Otherwise, the difficulties are there. The bad name may also go to the organization if somehow it happens. No. We need a law like the Bayh-Dole Act in the US, so that to what extent commercialization is possible from the public sector. Well, I'm almost coming to the end. I said intellectual property education is required, and even in the IPR policy, it is promoted to be progressively increased from schools onwards. So the whole issue of not just the biological resources, access and benefit sharing, but access and benefit sharing of all by developing the capacity. What I say is the awareness and capacity building on IPR issues to serve the national goals is so very important. And we need to have, I strongly at least recommend that IPR professor chairs in educational institutions, in research institutions, so the message of IPR goes. In our time, we used to network between the IPR in charge of CSIR, DRDO, and ICAR. And we used to understand from each other how the access and benefit sharing goes. Those kind of things have to continue so that the IPR is promoted in academic organization in the manner that is best in our national interests. When we propose a research proposal, we just review the literature available in the published documents. The fact is today, more literature is logged in the patents. So we need to provide a review of both patent and non-patent literature. As I said, technology gap analysis. We have a lot of scope for improving biological people's biodiversity register, for fostering managing biodiversity, digitizing traditional knowledge in patent-friendly language, I said. The plant animal variety characterization farmers. Variety rights for responsible multiplication, yes. Not an irresponsible and misuse of somebody's rights. As I said, the emphasis is required on social sciences. Then there should not be a negative effect of the intellectual property policies on social structures and agriculture sustainability. These days we are hearing about promoting one product from each district. So many farmers' varieties have been applied for and given rights under the PPVFR Act. Why not these farmers' varieties, at least the potential ones from this, are also taken care of and protected under the geographic indication list? Many have been done already, like Alfonso mango and so on. There are several agriculture goods have also been protected under geographic indication. But the question is, under this banner initiative like one district, one product, we can probably promote many of the farmers' varieties under the say farmer producing organization so that they convert into strong farmers' rights on their varieties, convert into strong community rights. Well, in education, it's not just in science and information technology. Even in social sciences, we can have IP issues. In copyright, I wish I could deliberate more on self-plagiarism, the trademark, designs, patents, the finance, the blockchain. Blockchain technology itself, is a decentralized technology. You take a farmer's variety, keep on improving. In scientific institutions also, you take the germplasm and keep on. To what extent is the improvement that all can get recorded? I mean, that's a far-fetched thinking as far as India is concerned, but blockchain technology has so much of role, even in agriculture, in fact, on all spheres. So, I mean, there are a whole lot of ethical and social issues, which is why I say appreciation of intellectual property rights, even by social sciences people, and promoting social sciences in academic institutions to educate people, create awareness and capacity building in a manner with a goal that is needed by our nations. Well, in the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, I also faced a lot of resistance to begin with. When I was training, people were not serious considering Indian agriculture situation. People say IPRs are not necessary, it's a necessary evil. And then I thought, when I'm doing my training programs and capacity building program, I can't be standing for 3 days altogether because people will be bored by my lectures for 3 days. So I had been inviting external resource persons. As an assistant director general, people may not be saying I'm objecting too much, but if you do not understand the larger objective of intellectual property right, if the speaker can be in difficulty because the Indian agriculture situation is so difficult. So I said, okay, I can be in difficulty because I'm an internal person of ICR, but my outside speaker should not be. So to keep my participants of scientists from agriculture institutes and universities in check, I designed a question. An absolutely simple question. IPR is 4 choices I gave to them: a necessary evil, a necessary good, absolute necessary, and absolute unnecessary. And believe me, before my program, the answer was it's a necessary evil. The challenge for me was by the end of the day, but third day, by the end of the third day, my participants should say that IPR is a necessity. Believe me, in 60% of my programs, at the end of the day, the mode frequency, the majority used to shift saying that IPR is a necessary good. I used to consider myself the happiest person on the earth when the majority at the end of that program was saying IPR is an absolute necessity. And then I used to tell them through my plenary lecture on access and benefit sharing about technology, services, and materials that even the adjective absolute is not necessary. IPR necessary to be internalized and assimilated. Basically, in those 3 days program, we are talking about all these issues of recognizing IP, determining the IP potential, assigning financial value, protecting, obtaining, maintaining IP, licensing, promotion, marketing, structuring, execution of agreements, take it all, telling them about this drafting of patents, claims, awareness on correct handling of intellectual property. At the end of the day, as we were talking in the beginning, Professor Moni was talking, in fact, networking, harnessing synergies. So, and finally, the goal is service to the society, stimulate access to technologies that benefit societies. This is an interesting slide I created for the school students long back. In Urdu, it is written Dastane Anarabad. It's a hypothetical village that is created. One old lady was in the has decided in her retired age to settle in an ashram in Rishikesh. Her husband had died. Her brother-in-law was also getting old, and he wanted to also leave away the pomegranate cake. It's a hypothetical story, believe me. So the old lady from the Rishikesh ashram sends a letter to her son having a plush job of in a multinational in America, saying that this is nobody is now interested. If you are interested, to take care of it. And this young boy, thought that my job is secured. Let me take leave for 2 years, try to do agriculture in India. If I don't succeed, I can anytime come back to the US. And there I tell you the whole scope of variety characterization, the correlation, understanding of the variety right up to the DNA fingerprint level, and then relating it with the field characteristics of the variety, the patenting of the juice extracting machine, making slogans as trademarks. Even if somebody is copying your patenting machine, and then these days police is also so aware about it. So you can even handle a muscle man. I'm showing this. So it's a long story to be told in about 1 hour at least. I will not go into it. The basically is I dream for appreciation of IP even in the villages. How we use it, that is the big challenge. And like I had one scheme on intellectual property internalization in the research institutions. I developed another scheme of attracting and retaining youth in villages where we tried to promote startups and entrepreneurship, which was being done through our division of agriculture extension. It is still being continuing in under division of agriculture extension. And so through the Krishi Vigyan Kendras and all, we try to at least convey the message of the intellectual properties. Finally, summing up in 5 slides, see all of these universal treaties having different numbers of countries as members. But only the word WTO has a dispute settlement mechanism. Other legally binding treaties have slightly lesser number of members, but they don't have a dispute settlement mechanism, which is why they don't get promoted that much. The responsibility is then lies on individual nations. Talk about the Convention on Biological Diversity, because that kind of legal binding is not followed by the member nations. The targets are not achieved. The question is, the situation has so that individual country has only to do all these issues, which is why I say the awareness about all these issues. The environment is also becoming so conducive. We have a science and technology innovation policy where the government is thinking to make easily available scholarly literature to everyone, progressively improving IPR teaching. Recently, the University Grants Commission has come out with guidance document on good academic practices. So the environment is building up. I propose here a short course to begin with on intellectual property rights, something on biological diversity, something on Patent Act, something on PPR Act, something on Seed Act, vis-a-vis the PPR Act, geographic indication, other intellectual property, the litigation cases. How do you assimilate the IP dimensions in research and education institutes? And how do you take the message of agriculture technology services right up to the villages, networking, entrepreneurship, and startups? Well, in short, the message is that we should be shaping debates, as I said, awareness and capacity, shaping debates, igniting minds, and building capacities. We should be knowing about intellectual property, not losing by ignorance. We may give it for free, but our slogan should be that we should not lose our IP by ignorance. Well, I would like to conclude Thank you very much. Professor Moni, it's your call now. I hope I am able to convey, but a lot more needs to be done because awareness, capacity building, each slide has a lot of message, and I realize I cannot give all the message in the short time. Thank you very much.
Professor Moni, you are on mute. Professor Moni, you are on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Mauria, for your very innovative, insightful, and value chain based IPR education today to all the participants through this national webinar series on doubling farmers' income by 2022. You said that, what should be the, our vision. You said it: shape debates, ignite minds, and build capacities. And, and also said it that, after the, such address, if you ask for, a survey, that understanding IPR is an absolute necessity. The resounding survey is capital YES. Yes, it is necessary. And you also said it that we should move from scientific research institution to higher educational institution to IP savvy villages. That is that value chain which you talked about it. This more than 1.5 hour talk from you was so engaging, everybody, and so pleasant, that it is a new area where if India has to, come out in a very big manner in agrarian economy, that everybody who is involved in agricultural development, agrarian economy, that this IPR issues has to be made available to them. And here the challenge is that 85% of our farming community is small and marginal farmers.
Yes.
And that is that one. And I'm very happy, Dr. Shashank Mauria, even though we have been, interacting with each other for more than 2 decades. But today is the penultimate date for me also to jump to another value chain, that how to bring in, IPR as an education, as a value through startups, at a grassroots level. That's what I also mentioned in my introductory, theme talk. And also you very nicely brought it out. And, it is more than a lecture. It's more than an address. It's more than a talk, but it is more than an important, journey, which we have to uplift, our agrarian economy to the global level. It has to be globalized. And if you also, and very nicely said it, that how blockchain technology and artificial intelligence can do fantastic reforms in IPR issues. It is not only resting with the science and technology, but even social science issue too. So thank you very much. And your talk is telecasted, on live through youtube.com and facebook.com. And all the, interested participants, scholars, faculty members, startups will get really benefit out of it. My request will be that, you should get associated with the Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology. The Honorable Chancellor, Kunwar Vijendra, is online, and is a time to, request him to give his valedictory address and also engage with you for for some time. And let me introduce the Honorable Chancellor, Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, deemed to be university. Shri Kunwar Vijendra is the co-founder and the Chancellor of Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, a deemed to be university, and also Shobhit University, Gango, Uttar Pradesh. He is a prominent social entrepreneur based in New Delhi and carries leadership roles in many organizations. He has been nominated as a co-chairman of National Council on Education of ASOCHAM, the world's apex chamber of commerce in India for the year 2020-21 and 2021-22. Shri Kunwar Vijendra is a persistent advocate of initiatives for education for all, secular values, crisis management through diplomatic and peaceful ways, and globalized system of learning and harmonious coexistence. He has been instrumental in the development of a number of higher educational institutes in North India, including 2 universities, many research centers, an Ayurveda Medical College, College of Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences, and a 100-bed hospital. Shri Kunwar Vijendra is instrumental in establishing 4 centers of excellence, first in India, Center for Agriculture Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies, Center for Agribusiness and Disaster Management Studies, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Applications, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Applications in the university to promote informatics and technology-led development in rural India. He is also planning to establish a Center for Health Informatics and Computing in the university, very actively involved with a number of social organizations. Acknowledging his contribution in the areas of education and other concerns, he has been copiously honored and awarded. He has traveled widely in India and abroad to the countries like USA, UK, Germany, Australia, Russia, China, South Korea, Vietnam, Mongolia, United Arab Emirates, Mauritius, Rwanda, Uganda, and Croatia, etc., to participate in various professional, social, and educational activities. Shri Kunwar Vijendra is a passionate journalist, avid reader, learner, social speaker, occasional poet, and a dreamer. We welcome our Honorable Chancellor, Shri Kunwar Vijendra, to address in this very important national webinar series on doubling farmers' income by 2022. Today's topic is very important for the farming sector and that too for small and marginal farmers. Over to the Honorable Chancellor, Shri Kunwar Vijendra.
Thank you very much, Professor Moni. And thank you, Dr. Shashank Mauria, for being with us. It was indeed a very informative and elaborated lecture on IPR. First of all, let me congratulate both of you for sharing knowledge, experience, and making the people aware of this very important issue. The topic of today's webinar, as it is mentioned by Professor Moni, is Agro-Biodiversity, Intellectual Property Laws, Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, an insight into the issue for India's agrarian economy. And as as Dr. Shashank Mauria mentioned, that even if the knowledge is shared with everybody, but the right should remain with the owner. In India, we always believed to share the knowledge. हमारे यहाँ कहा गया ज्ञान जितना बांटते हैं उतना बढ़ता है, लेकिन ज्ञान बांटने का मतलब ये नहीं है कि वो ज्ञान बट जाए और किसी और को उसकी ओनरशिप मिल जाए. So thank you very much that you are working in this direction, and thank you very much that you have devoted yourself for a cause which is very, very important indeed. Agriculture requires a middle path between these two extreme issues, what have been discussed today, and especially in today's challenging environment, when science, technology, innovation, IPR, research, production, food issues, climate issues, environmental issues, so many things are happening. we need to discuss Agro-Biodiversity also, as well as IPR also. So thank you, Dr. Shashank Mauria, for being with us and for sharing a wonderful presentation today. I would like to congratulate our Center for Agriculture Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies and Center for Agri-Business and Disaster Management Studies through its chairman, Professor M. Moni. This is your 25th webinar on a very relevant topic when we are talking about doubling farmers' income by 2022. And to double the income of the farmers, it is not only what people are saying and many times what policy documents are telling, that we have to increase the produce. We have to address all those issues which are related to that, all allied issues. All different points have to be taken care. And I'm happy that today's 25th webinar of this series has addressed one of those issues which generally we either avoided to discuss or we never thought that it is important, except in newspapers when we saw some popular patent litigation cases like cotton, basmati, turmeric, neem, wheat, etc. When they came, we had a hue and cry, but then we forgot about it. We never thought that we have to educate our farmers. We have to educate the nation. We have to discuss it in the mainstream. It is not a news item only, it is a mainstream issue. And thank you, Dr. Mauria, for advising that IPR education should be there from schools. New education policy has come. In new education policy, we are talking about lot many things. As mentioned, I am co-chair of National Council on Education of SOCHM. And a lot of recommendations what we made through that platform have been accepted by Ministry of Education, by Honorable Education Minister time to time. I will appreciate if we can get a note from you. We will like to share it from different platforms. We like to be an advocate of this thing, that yes, it should be taught in different schools, universities, as we teach environment as a compulsory subject in all the schools and universities. I was trying to find something about IPR policy 2016, and it says Creative India, Innovative India, Rachnatmak Bharat, Abhinav Bharat. A creative India can be when not only we create new things, but what has been created by us is safeguarded. We can innovate the things when we know that whatever knowledge we have, it can be integrated by different organizations together, and they will not work in silo. Right, from agriculture, like farmers, to agriculture universities, to research institutions, to schools, to agri-tech companies, to professionals like you, technocrats, bureaucrats, policymakers. We all have to come together to fulfill the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister. When he aspired, he said, yes, this country needs to double the income of the farmers by 2022. And it is possible. In last 25 weeks, I have seen so much work is happening, but many of the things what is happening is in silo. This platform we have created to integrate the thing. We want that people should know, understand, and they should be in touch with the professionals like you and discuss with you what is possible and how it can be done. I should not speak on the subject where the master is sitting. You know more than me on all these subjects, but few points what you mentioned, and I found them very relevant. One was one district, one product. We all are talking about it. And we are trying to find what is the product. Historically, Aligarh had locks, Historically, मेरठ में कैंची बनती थी.
Yes.
Historically, somewhere something was happening, and we do not know. Neither we have that capacity now, nor we have those industries now, nor neither we have that workmanship now. But we are not seeing to our farmers. We are not seeing to our fields where the same thing is happening every day. And I really appreciate this thing that in one district, one product, we have to see the variety of our yields also. We have to see this. You talked about mango. If I look at in Western UP itself, we can find so many varieties of mango and which can be geographically identified and marked. ये आम यहाँ पर होता है, ये चीज यहाँ पर होती है. And this is wonderful idea, and definitely we have to work in that direction. You had been with one of the best organization, Indian Council for Agriculture Research. And if I'm not wrong, during one of the lecture or speech, Honorable Prime Minister said that now labs have to go to land.
Yes.
And land has to go to labs. So I believe that after your lecture, not only by a former Assistant Director General, but the existing ones also will start working in integration with all these things, that how the labs can go to lands. Because many things we all are doing. I know that India is doing so much. Our institutions are doing so much. But many times I feel that we have to create in this country knowledge grids. If you have something, you are doing something, it should be known to everybody and it should be accessible and available to me also. When IPR is important, but combined research policies are also required, where we can work together with the all stakeholders. And I am sure that today's deliberations, discussion, presentation, it will help people to think. It will give us a reason to think again that it is a news item, कब हमारी हल्दी किसी और की हो गई, or it is a policy matter, a big concern for all of us, that yes, we have to look into that. One interesting thing you mentioned about that there should be a professor chair, a chair professor in universities on IPR. I will discuss on that. And maybe the university will like to invite you to develop a chair of IPR, because I have seen that you are a member of BCI also. It means you are an advocate also. You are an agriculturist. You had been a partially bureaucrat and scientist, a policymaker, and now you are.
Above all, he is a big human being.
And okay, this is the best thing what is required. So we have a School of Agriculture with us. We have 4 wonderful centers developed by Professor Moni. We have a Faculty of Law with us. We are working in management department. There are so many things, even in engineering, everywhere in every university, if I look at, everywhere we need IPR to be there. We need to discuss. However, I do not much personally, if you ask me, I always believe ज्ञान को बांटते चले जाओ, उसे बांधो मत.
You're right. Yeah.
But seeing the current scenario when we talk about research, innovation, and commercialization of the knowledge, when we say that our economy has to be knowledge-centric, then IPR becomes more important. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to meet you in person soon.
Sure, sir.
To discuss more things and to learn something new from you. So thank you very much, Professor Moni, for a wonderful webinar today. And my congratulations to you again. 25 is big number, and you achieved it very successfully, very effectively, very impactfully. Thank you, Dr. Shashank. Thank you, Professor Moni. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chancellor, Kunwar Vijendra, and also Dr. Shashank Mauria. it was a very pleasant day for me. And I'm very happy that Dr. Shashank Mauria also tells that he is coming from western part of Uttar Pradesh. He belongs to western part of Uttar Pradesh. So the thing is that as a son of the soil, he has every responsibility to walk to the field to come with the idea, and let us work together. Now
Sure.
that when with the support of the person like Shri Kunwar Shekhar Vijendra, when I was in service, he invited me to work out as to how to bring in agricultural informatics as a discipline. After traveling more than 400 districts to promote IT in agriculture from 95 onwards, from 87 onwards, 512 districts and district information system program. And I was also able to see the rural distress, way back in 90s and 80s, when Shri Kanwar Shekhar Vijendra invited me for a talk for a meeting when I was a Deputy Director General Agriculture Informatics. I thought that rather than after my retirement look for an industry job, let me get into the academic environment and see the Center for Excellence for a rural area, because I was born and brought up in a rural area, and as an IITian, I thought that I should bring the technology back to rural area and how to see rural India. That's why in 2004 I wrote an article, Rural India to Shine, to Smile, and to Roar. And this is what I wrote it in 2004 when the Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Shri Kanwar Shekhar Vijendra, the Honorable Chancellor, and that time he was a pro-chancellor. When invited, I thought that this is the right time that I should convert my previous article that rural India to shine, smile, and roar. And I think the time has come. So I retired on May 31st, 2013, and from 1st June onwards, I am with him, with two universities, now 4 centers of excellence. We, offered, launched MTech in Agricultural Informatics, BTech in Agricultural Informatics, PG diploma, and a very innovative MBA program in agribusiness management, and MBA in Industry 4.0, MTech in Informatics and e-governance. And I'll be very happy that today's lecture, with this one, if we are able to have a BG diploma, a diploma, or an MBA program, an IPR, and maybe in the world, this program will be an important program because it has got a complete components of a value chain. That with an experienced person like you, I think let us work together, let us bring it out. And I always used to say, Uttar Pradesh, that is a western world. People ask to say that, Professor Moni, you are from Kanyakumari next to the Indian Ocean. We thought that after 35 years of work in the capital, you may go back to Kanyakumari and look towards Indian Ocean, but you are now locked up in Meerut. I told them that Uttar Pradesh is a fertile state. It can be a food bowl for India, food bowl for the whole world. And within Uttar Pradesh, Western Uttar Pradesh, if I can operationalize IT in agriculture and also establish agricultural informatics, this will be the biggest contribution which I would have done it through an institute like Shobhit Institute of Engineering Technology to the whole world. So maybe the administrative setup or the political situation or other activities which the newspapers media may depict Uttar Pradesh in a different manner, but as a person traveled more than 400 districts in the country, Uttar Pradesh is a very important state for operationalization, technology implementations. That's why I have chosen Western Uttar Pradesh as for my model state, model region for operationalization. So thank you very much for your participation, your address. This will go a long way and is a game changer with respect to bringing in technology for development, informatics related development in Uttar Pradesh, in India, in other developing countries. Thank you very much. With this, we close the seminar and we leave studio. Thank you very much. For
Thank you very much.
inquiries,
Thank you.
please,
Namaskar.
write to, Soviet Institute of Engineering Technology, and my email ID is moni@sovietuniversity.ac.in. Thank you very much. We will leave studio and close this webinar. Thank you.